But I'm going to flip the show sheet a little bit because now we're on to Najee Harris, and I want to talk about Najee Harris and my Steelers fandom and how I just don't care about the Steelers at all. But more importantly, Najee Harris is someone that I pretty much nailed, if I'm going to be honest. And yet people really tried to dunk on me last year for nailing it. Because I was like, yeah, he's going to be like a back-end RB1. And then he scored 17, 18 points a game, which is
not
back-end.
Even that, I don't think. Did he?
16 points a game, which is back-end RB1. And the people are like, dunked on. And I was like, no, that's what I said was going to happen.
Right.
And then I was like, watch out.
He played to his ADP. He met expectations. Najee Harris's teacher last year would have put on his report card, ME, meeting expectations.
And he did not go over and above at all. He showed no exemplary qualities other than he did catch 17 passes or something in a game when literally their entire receiving core got hurt.
That was pretty cool.
Outside of that, he didn't do anything at all the whole year.
Yeah.
And it was depressing for all who drafted.
17.7 fantasy points per game, which is good. He was the RB8, and he was drafted at basically the RB8. So
yeah. So like I said, he would be a back-end RB1. And he probably would have been a lot lower if everyone on the team didn't get hurt that one game. And he got 17 freaking catches. Because that's a lot of fantasy points in a singular game.
But let's talk about Najee Harris now, right? Okay. So that's the past. What's past is prologue, as they say. And what's present is that they added no notable competition for Najee Harris. They only added this year Jaylen Warren and Mateo Durant, undrafted free agents. Those are the only people that they signed. Actually, Jeremy McNichols, but he's on injured reserve. And then Jaylen Warren, undrafted free agent from Oklahoma State, has all of a sudden become a pretty relevant part of the offense to the extent that Najee Harris is no longer seeing over 50% of the routes. And it's very hard to have 17 receptions in a game if you don't even see half your team's routes. That's quite difficult. And then he's also seen now over the last 2 weeks, 74% of their third downs, right? And so I've seen a lot of people say that the snap counts are noise. I agree to an extent. All the fourth quarter snaps in which the Steelers mostly had the ball, I'm not blaming Najee for that. Najee's not going to play 50% of the snaps most games. But if he's losing the third downs and he's losing routes and Jaylen Warren's playing a real role, and Mike Tomlin came out and said, yeah, he's going to play more, right? Then what are we doing with Najee Harris? Because in my view, Harris really didn't have any special qualities. He was not a particularly efficient runner in his first year. He's actually a particularly inefficient runner in his first year. He never profiled out of college as an explosive player or even as a special receiving talent. He profiled as a guy who was very capable in all of the base competencies of the game, which is good. He's an expectation meter. But that leaves him susceptible to any running back who a coach deems has a comparative advantage over him, or if they just don't want to use a running back on 100% of the snaps. Because when you're not a special player, you need that massive volume to make you an elite asset. And he was treated like an elite asset. He was a consensus top 5 running back in Dynasty. He was going round 1-2 turn in redraft this year. Looks like a bad pick. And at this point in time, there's almost no discernible difference in Dynasty between him and, say, Josh Jacobs, who's a similar age, seeing a much better role. Just how far has things fallen for Najee Harris? Because I put out my projection of the top 10 Dynasty running backs come May of next year. And there's a few guys I want to talk about. But one notable mention is that Najee Harris, consensus top 5 Dynasty running back during this season, was not there. And do you think he will be in the top 10 conversation next year?
No, I don't think he's going to be in the top 10. I think here's the thing. Najee Harris I feel like he has something that was very serious that I thought was going to keep him out of games. And then he just kept playing. Was it
Lisfranc?
Lisfranc. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's playing with a Lisfranc and he sucks. He sucked to begin with. And now he's playing with a Lisfranc. So he's even worse. We have another degree of suck happening because of this Lisfranc injury. Now, am I going to victory lap this? Absolutely, because we should always victory lap everything.
Of course.
And Najee Harris is not very good, and he's been exposed. I actually was just looking for this thread, and I found a tweet, speaking of the Steelers' first-round frauds, and I literally tweeted, oh, man, the Steelers' first-round frauds, last 2 years, Kenny Pickett, Najee Harris, hilarious. Can't get worse than this. And here we are. Anyway, Najee Harris his price is cratering right now in Dynasty, as it should. because he was way too high to begin with. He's already down 1,400 points.
But how low would too low be?
I'd buy him for a late first. I'd buy him for an early second.
Late 2023 first.
Probably, yeah.
Interesting. Okay. So you're late 2023 first in this class. It might even be possible for there to be bulletproof running backs, or at least high-end coin flip running backs in the late.
So here's the thing. It's almost definitely not going to happen, even though it could happen. And the reason for that is that it never happens. We've seen many years, even like 2020.
How many in 2020 did we have? 4 bulletproof running backs in 2020? Or 5? Yeah. Did we have 5? Because Taylor was bulletproof, right? Swift, Akers. Yeah. Oh, right. And then CH went ahead of all of them, but he wasn't bulletproof.
Exactly. And they all went.
But CH pushed bulletproof running backs down.
Yeah, it was great. You couldn't have written a better script for the bulletproof fantasy football methodology than the 2020 draft, where you could just trade back from Clyde Edwards-Helaire into DeAndre Swift or Cam Akers and a late first and pick up T. Higgins. Like, it was beautiful. Sometimes you even got Justin Jefferson in the late first. Like, it doesn't get better than that. Anyways, Najee, like in that class, we still had all 5 of those running backs going in like the top 7 picks. Like, if there's a good running back prospect, they're not going to fall to late first. Very unlikely. We're just going to get good wide receivers pushed down. But as we know, wide receivers are really hard to find a true difference maker. So in this case, Najee Harris he's not that good. He's probably Josh Jacobs at worst, though. Like Josh Jacobs before this year.
Right. That's the comp that I've been using. And I guess here's why. So I put out the tweet. I said Najee Harris is not a buy low. He's a sell low. And cards on the table, people should know this about me. I have strong opinions about players for sure, certain players. But like, I am the last guy to like not reverse course on a player if I think there's new information or if I think that the price has fallen to a point where I would have bought. Like CeeDee Lamb is a great example of like a guy where the last couple of years I've been fading at cost, and then he was falling early in the season, and like I was shouting from the mountaintops. I was like, I don't think CeeDee Lamb should be falling that much. Like I'm happy to buy CeeDee Lamb. Najee, I feel the opposite about. I said he's not a buy low. This is a sell low. And I think the reason is, I talked about everything about the projectable volume, right? I think people were putting way too much weight on like a micro view of like, this guy played X percentage of snaps last year, and not like a macro view in terms of this is the type of player that he is. This is the type of role that these players get. And you mentioned Josh Jacobs. I think it's a great comp, although I do think Jacobs is actually a better player. But yeah. I agree. I do think it's a really good comp in terms of like market analysis, which is where Jacobs has his rookie year, and it was like a good rookie year, but it wasn't otherworldly. It wasn't like oh my God, this guy's transcendent type rookie year. It wasn't like Jonathan Taylor's rookie year, for instance. And then he gets pushed way up, right? He gets pushed way up. He goes at the 1-2 turn in redraft. He's like often on the fringes of the top 5 in dynasty. And then sure enough, he has like a pretty normal season the next year. He was fine. He was like a borderline RB1 in his year 2, but he falls in value because people are like, oh, like I thought I was buying this like special young player, but actually what I was just buying this longevity at a marginally above replacement level asset. And then sure enough, in year 3, he is the same again. Like he's been the same guy every year. It's not like he's gotten worse or better, but just been the same. And then his price like craters, right? Like he was going like, really late in drafts, like sometimes like round 7, round 8. I mean, he was occasionally falling like round 8 in some late best ball drafts. And at that point, it's like, okay, he probably should have been a buy. And honestly, I should have been buying him more. But I think that's in Najee's future. I think that there is a time in which people will be like mad at Najee Harris for punishing him rather than seeing the sunk cost as something to bounce back up to. There will be a time when people over-focus on the most recent usage when that usage is then bad. And people forget that there's value in a highly drafted running back with base competency in every part of the game. And that sometimes when the chips fall properly to a running back like that, you get 2022 Josh Jacobs or 2021 Leonard Fournette. And it would not surprise me at all if Najee Harris has another mid-range RB1 season at some point in his career. But if I were to bet, I think the price falls lower before I get to a point where I'm like, it's actually kind of a nice buy right now, Najee Harris. But I think that that's coming one day. I just think for now, I'm still selling. I would sell for like any 2023 first.
Yeah, so I feel like you are implying that I'm buying, and I said I'd buy him for a late first, early second.
Right, so if I had Najee Harris, and you have a 5-0 team, and you say, would you like my 2023 first for Najee Harris? I say yes, and then you send it over to me. So you're buying, and I'm selling.
He is nowhere near that price right now. He's still over 1,000 KTC points away from an early second, and he is still, what is he from a late first? Still 400 points away from a late first.
So we got a ways to go.
He's got a ways to go before I'm buying. I would buy him kind of in that fringy, like first, second range. But yeah, I'm not like selling him, or I'm not buying him today. That's for sure. I just think there's a reasonable expectation that his production would have been muted this season because of the Liz Frank. And I think he had another injury as well. That
he had two Liz Franks.
We had two Liz Franks?
He had a Liz Frank in the summer.
Foot, or like the same foot?
No, twice? The same foot. He had one in the summer, and then he re-aggravated it in like late August.
Oh, okay. So like Liz Franks, if I recall, I believe I should have looked this up beforehand.
Really bad.
Quite confident it is like a very long-term injury. Like it takes a long time to recover from.
And to be clear, it's obviously a minor one. Like that's like the same like umbrella of injury that like Travis Etienne had, and obviously he played 0 games last year. So whatever Harris has is clearly not as bad as that, but it's still affecting his midfoot area. And we've seen players like Des Bryant played on a midfoot sprain one year, and he was just like bad the whole year.
That's what I'm saying with Najee Harris. Like I think he sucks this year. I think he normally sucks, but I think he's extra suck. And I think at some point, we're going to get to a point where it's like, hey, it's time to go buy Najee Harris. I looked at this thread that I had posted about how bad running backs.
Especially bad for running backs, by the way. Like you can't plant, right? Like you can't cut and plant because your foot is in excruciating pain. So you're just kind of like tentatively.
You know, now that you say that, it's probably not as bad for Najee Harris because he couldn't cut in the first place. So it's basically just like he's still playing normally, I guess. But no, but like seriously, he's definitely hobbled. And his price is still going down. Like don't think this is the bottom. We are still on the way down. So he's a sell low today. He's going to be a buy low at some point in the near future.
I agree.
Probably by the end of the season, he's a buy low.